Okay, so I'm going to be doing a tree going from dark to light. Typically in watercolor we go from light and move into the darks, gradually building up into the darks. But what I'm going to do is more of a pull stroke approach where I'm going to go right into the darks on the tree and in the foliage and then tint it and pull it into the lights. So that means that I'm going to pre-mix my colors. So I've got these colors mixed out. This dark green here has yellow ochre, Prussian blue, and a little bit of cobalt blue. This slightly medium greenish, warm green has yellow ochre, plus a little bit of lemon yellow, and a little bit of that Prussian blue as well. And then this has a tiny bit of Prussian blue and lemon yellow, so it's quite bright. I'm also going to be using burnt sienna as well, because there are some pretty warm orangey tones in this tree. So you notice I'm using a sumi brush, and the reason for that is because it can hold up a lot of color. And I also use a stroke where I'm going to almost stamp the bristles onto the paper, so I'm able to get a little bit of this splayed out effect that can evoke foliage. So I'm going to start into the darks of the tree in the foliage and then move left towards the lights. So like I said, it's going to be pretty much just almost a stamp technique. Stamp, stamp, stamp. And as I'm stamping, I'm going almost at a 90-degree angle, pushing down into the paper. And I want to leave little pockets of white to show the negative space, basically the sky coming through. So that's why I'm not just massing the entire tree. I want to leave some space. And as I move to the left, I'm going to leave more and more space, because of course that's when I'm going to drop in the lighter colors. I have this initial drawing, so I'm using that as a reference to kind of lead the cluster of leaves up along that edge. So most of that side I think is in place, because now what I'm going to do is taking this warmer green, using a little bit of that yellow ochre, I'm going to continue that, and it's going to start to pick up some of the darker green that's inside. So it's going to be mixing directly on the paper. And why I like to use these sumi brushes is because the bristles can spread out in a way where we can get these little specks. It's I find that a little bit harder than if I were, say, using a round brush, which it's a bit of a tighter point and the bristles don't spread out as much. Here I find I'm able to get more of a spread out stroke, which I think is effective for foliage. And you can see I'm here and there into the darker passages. I'm going to drop some of that warmer, lighter green as well. And now I'm going to pick up that bright yellow, lemon yellow green, and start placing it right on top. And so you see how it's in the areas where it's just the paper, really. And so it's starting to mix a little bit in the areas where I'm overlapping the darker colors. But for the most part, I'm not really trying to overlap too much of the dark colors, just here and there. And what I try to do along the edge of the tree is have some more individualized suggestions of foliage cutting up against the contour of the tree. I could even do that on the shadow side as well. And into that color that I just put in, this sort of warmer, or I should say lighter green, lemon yellow green, I want to add just little touches of burnt sienna. You see here and there, just to warm it up, add a little bit of warmth to the color. And I'm going to take that same burnt sienna color and mix it with that dark green I had, and that will create almost like a dark brownish gray. I'm mixing some more Prussian blue to that, so it's getting quite dark. Burnt sienna, Prussian blue, a little bit of the yellow ochre. So we get this dark brownish, greenish brown. And that's going to be what I'm going to use for my shadows on my tree trunk and the branches. And I'll also have this burnt sienna color that I'll use as well for the actual light side of the tree trunk. Okay, so I have a similar approach. I'm going to start with the darks so I can go ahead and start placing them on the right side of the tree trunk. I'm going to use that same stroke using just the point of the brush to add some little branches that are just sort of coming in and out of the foliage. And what's interesting about this is that you can maybe you'll be pulling maybe some of these little these beads of color that have accumulated. And so your branches pick up some of the color. They're not just this blue-brown. They also have elements of the green and the other colors that are in your already down on your page. And I think that's quite effective because, of course, in the tree, you're going to get all types of colors bouncing around and you get this color spread and movement. And I am mindful of the little pockets of white. I want to, keep those really important because, of course, that's the sky showing through. And usually I would be, I'd maybe have a tint down initially, like for example, a blue sky color. That would enable me to just have the sky behind. And then the tree would be silhouetted on top. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that lighter burnt sienna, I added some yellow ochre to that, and just pull from the dark into the light side of the trunk. And what I do is I often pick up the color and I maybe release some of it if I have too much paint on my brush. You see that? So it's on the one hand spreading the color, and then also I'm able to lift off excess color, so excess pigment really. And the truth is, with every brush, there's a bit of a personality. There's a bit of a, you have these types of marks that are made depending on the brush. So you can do this exact same technique, of course, using a round brush or a flat brush or a mop brush. You could definitely try other than just using the sumi brush. So I recommend just seeing what brushes you have and giving it a shot, maybe even doing different types of trees using different brushes to get to see the comparison between the two. So you can see how I have, this is all more or less one layer. There's some color drops inside, but I basically just did one layer. What I'm gonna do is just give a suggestion of a foreground or a grass space. So I'll just do a sort of a stroke that will cut across, and that will actually pick up, you see some of the tone there, which actually could be, could work. It could suggest maybe some of the shadow coming off of or being cast down from the tree. And I could keep working into that a little bit there. So this isn't necessarily the only layer that could be applied. I could work into this if I'd like, once it's dry, going further in with a little bit more, let's say, to specify some detail. You can even, if you'd like, lift off slightly here and there to pick up some of the color. But as a base, it's a nice, let's say, foundation for to place in a tree, to work in from dark to light. You could use a dark to light approach for any subject, really. It's just, I think a big part of it is the preparation of the palette, because it is wet and you want to take advantage of the wetness. You want to have the colors already set up for you, so that way you can just transition easily from color to color. But once you have that, then you can just start blocking in the shadows, moving in across into the lights, and you have the lights, and they make these really nice color mixtures right there on the page. And the last little touch that I'll do is I'll just put in some more brights right on top as it's still drying, and that helps to add a little bit of density and mass into some of the, let's say, some of the masses of the leaves, so it doesn't look too much like a silhouette. And if in some areas I will just kind of overlap those pockets of white, and that ends up creating a nice glow here and there of greenish yellow. And there we go.